There's something in there. It's Friday, July 3rd. And first on the agenda today, we're going to do some machine shed Tetris. And probably clean up the corn planter. I sort of have things in the wrong spot. Corn planter needs to be in this corner, grain drill needs to be somewhere, and then the bean planter will go against that wall where the corn planter is. I kind of want to get stuff unhooked from tractors so that we can have them available for other uses and potentially start getting a few things ready for harvest. Going through some maintenance, and still need to do air conditioning on this guy. And still need to clean up the corn planter also. I haven't blown it off yet. I did blow the bean planter off a week or two ago. So we had have the sprayer unhooked from the 5230 right now. So the plan is to use it to move the grain drill. It'll never pull it through the field, but for moving it around the yard, it works fine. And then kind of get things rearranged so that things are in the right spots. I may or may not unhook the planters right now. Probably might unhook the corn planter, may leave the bean planter on there. If I get ambitious, I may replace some openers and stuff on that before it goes in the shed for the year. I know I need to do some work on the markers on the corn planter also. We'll see if I get ambitious on that or not. That one might be more of a next spring type operation. But got a lot of little junk in the way too. So gonna get everything pulled out and then start putting things back. Seat's flat. There we go. See that we had the tractor parked right underneath the vents in the center of the roof because there's bird's nest pieces and broken eggs and everything else on the hood. So that's nice. Let me get this backed up here in the tree line just out of the way for the time being, and then keep pulling everything else out. All right, let's cross our fingers this guy starts. Beautiful. This is a trailer that had the AMS on it. Right now it just has the pallets that we had the totes on the spray trailer. Just gonna get it out of the way. And we've got some more little random stuff, and then we can get corn planter and the grain drill out. This is the billboard tarp, seed wagon tarp project that sort of got abandoned mid-season. So looks like I need to get it moved. Might actually be calm enough. Well, the wind's kind of coming up maybe. Basically had a tarp that was longer than necessary. Dad cut it in half instead of cutting it to the length of the wagon to make sure we didn't cut it short. But now it's like 6 feet too long, which is kind of a problem, especially with trying to use electrical conduit down the sides. Whole thing needs some work. Hello, dirt. Good looking fish though. Okay, so I think I'm finally to a spot where I can get the corn planter out of here. So I'm gonna pull this around in front of the shop. Camera's in the wrong hand. Looks like the seat's flat in this one too. Not sure if it's a feature of the tractor, but every time you start this thing, the hitch capture beeps. Kind of annoying. Alright, I'm going to use both hands to get this out of here, because kind of have to pay attention to what I'm doing, being close to the wall and whatnot. You just have to trust me that it's going to come out here and go out that door. Alright, we got the corner empty. So I could put the bean planter back in now. I think the stuff is over far enough. However, I think I might put the dirt bucket on the skid loader and kind of try to smooth this up a little bit. There's kind of some holes back in here where either things have settled or critters have dug, moved some dirt around, or possibly yours truly over here. So I think I might try to smooth that out a little bit, just because there's not a whole lot else I can do today since it's a federal holiday, July 3rd. And nothing else is open, so I can't really haul grain. Sorry if you're having trouble seeing me. There was actually some smudges on there I didn't know about. So as I was saying, federal holiday, so can't haul grain. Everything's closed. I asked the boss if I got today off, and he grumbled at me. Then I brushed my teeth and walked away from the mirror in the bathroom. But sometimes that's how it is being self-employed. Just another day, to be honest. I take vacations too, so it's fine. So anyway, I'm gonna try to smooth this up a little bit. I'm gonna probably try to do some back in this corner too. There's kind of a spot back there that some things have dug underneath the bottom board to get access to the shed, so I'm gonna try to seal that up a little bit. They'll probably dig it out tomorrow, but at least we'll have them blocked out temporarily. Well, I'm not going to say this is a thing of beauty, but I think it's a little better than it was. Hard to tell. The low spots may still settle out over time, but at least it looks good for the time being, I guess, so not bad for 5 minutes of effort. I do need to bring a shovel out and kind of work on this corner because I see there's a critter run back here too. Maybe I can do some good with my foot for the time being. Probably they'll have that dug back out in no time, but make it a little bit difficult for them at least. So probably I need to take a rake or something and kind of rework that edge a little bit. But it should be okay to get the planter in here for the time being. Usually we won't get clear against the wall, or the wheels actually are away from the back of the planter anyway. So I should be able to work around the planter once it's in here to kind of clean that up. And then I can just do it all after I kind of work on this half too. That actually went in fairly easy. As you can see, one track. Didn't even have to pull up and repack. And about 2 inches away on that center press wheel. So perfect. I'm gonna leave it hooked up for the time being, I think, just in case I decide to work on some more stuff later this summer or whatever. I don't need this tractor for anything immediately, but at least it's in the spot where it belongs so we can pull it out and put it back without rearranging the entire shed. So next, we're gonna work on this stuff. These little trailers aren't too big of a deal, other than the tires on this go flat. So I made Dad air them up because that's sort of his operation. It's a concrete mixer that probably sat in somebody's fence row outside for 30 years, and then he mounted on this thing with an electric motor to sort of clean walnuts with, essentially, or like tumble them to knock the black stuff off of the nut part. So gonna get those out of the way and then pull the drill out with this. One of the things that I don't like about this drill is the frickin' hitch. So as you can see, it has like a setup for a pintle style or a hammer strap where you have the drawbar underneath and then the piece that goes over the top. The problem is the hitch isn't wide enough to really give you much range of motion with any normal hammer strap. And it has this contraption that you bolt onto the drawbar, and then you have to get the hitch of the drill inside that bushing with the spacers on top and bottom in this bracket, and use three bolts, 2 different sizes, so 2 wrenches and a ratchet and 2 sockets. And you have to get it all lined up, and it's a real joy. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm not going to move this more than about 100 feet total. My plan is to just pull it forward, back it out onto the flat, and then get the corn planter put in here, and then put the drill back or shove it in a different spot, but not really go anywhere other than inside the shed here and in the immediate area outside where it's flat. So probably what I'm going to do is just drop a pin through that and take it easy and watch it close. Obviously would not ever try to do that with it in the ground, but since that bolty hitch contraption is such a pain, we're gonna save some trouble today, I think, since we're not really doing anything with it. Got the drill moved out of the way, so now I'm going to fire up the skid loader again and kind of try to level this off a little bit and get some dirt to fill in that gap right there, where all the critters have been coming in and out to stay in the shed. Not too shabby, and again, gonna have to do a little more work to kind of smooth some of this lumpiness out and pack some back into that spot where there was a gap underneath the boards where the critters were coming through. Probably they'll just dig it out, but maybe it'll help for a little while. All right, let's go blow off the corn planter. So the cleanup on this is going to be largely the same as the bean planter. Mostly we're trying to get the row units fairly clean. Didn't really remember this getting rained on. There's a lot of dirt. So I must have caught some showers sometime. Anyway, I was going to do a quick sort of explanation of how everything works on this. So the seed goes in up here. There's a fiberglass hopper, so it kind of V's down to the front center here. And then the seed comes out into the drum. Put one of these off. So underneath the hopper, like right in here, just duck under. So right above where this hydraulic motor is, you can see kind of the aluminum, the gray part there. Above that, there's a big fan. You can even kind of see the circle part there. That is hydraulically driven off the PTO pump. So it blows continuously. We can adjust the pressure using a needle valve over here. And then basically that puts air into the seed hopper and into the drum. So if I can get this wiggled off with one hand. So the seed comes out here and you end up with kind of a pool of seed in the bottom of this drum. So then the drum turns, and since there's air pressure, you end up with one seed in each of these pockets. So in this case it's a corn drum, so we'd have one kernel of corn in each of those holes. When you're planting corn, you want fairly accurate, like one seed per spot. You don't want 2 and you don't want 0. So you need enough air pressure to hold those seeds in. And then the adjustment on this for kind of eliminating skips. So if you had, smaller seeds, you could get 2 kernels stuck in there with the air pressure. So as this drum comes around, it rolls past this brush. So there's little wheels here that set the the distance away from the metal, and then you can loosen these screws and adjust that up and down based on the seed size. So if the brush is too high, you could be knocking both seeds or all one seed, if it's a large one, out of those pockets and getting skips. If the brush is low, you could be having 2 in pockets and getting doubles. So you adjust that based on the seed size and shape. As it continues around, so these are the row shutoffs, so they're pneumatically operated. That way, like when there's air pressure there, it has some flex if the drum isn't perfectly round. So if the planter is not planting, or if those rows are not planting, that'll be down. The seeds will get knocked out here and then drop back into the drum, and the pocket will be empty. If the planter is planting, we have what's called the cutoff wheels, or what we call the cutoff wheels, at least over here, which they're locked back right now, but there's a spring here that holds these rubber wheels against the drum. And if the row is planting, then there will be a seed there, and as it comes past here, that'll seal off that pocket. And then the majority of the air goes out through the tubes to the row units. So there's a manifold right here. You can see there's 8 runs where each of those rows on the drum get directed back, and then the hoses hook up underneath there. So the majority of the airflow is going out those tubes, and as you seal that off in front of the front end of this, then that seed gets shot down, or those seeds in that row get shot down to go to the rows, or to the row units. The drive for the drum is all mechanical, so there's a wheel on each wing that, when that has contact with the ground, turns this chain, which turns the shaft underneath the planter. And then right back here is the transmission. So this is how we set the population, just with different sprockets. So basically, duck around through the back here. So we have 2 chains here that we can adjust the ratios, essentially, so that we can change the speed that drum rotates at. Depending on what crop you're planting, you might use a different drum with different numbers of pockets. So with soybeans, we're planting a lot higher population. In 30-inch rows, we would be using a drum with a lot more pockets, and it would be kind of a double row, so that it didn't have to turn super fast. Then there's a chain up here that goes to a gearbox, and then there's a shaft that goes forward that drives the drum to turn it. And then you can also see where the hoses come out the back side of that manifold, so the seed for this row would come out that would be the back hole, I believe, right, because they curve up that way. The back row of holes on the drum. Then it comes down the tube, or comes down the tube through the seed sensor, which is down in here, and then drops into the trench. So the depth control on the row units is all done with a screw that goes through the middle here and actually adjusts sort of how these gauge wheels so this is called a gauge wheel, how far those can come forward, or how far the arms can come forward, which then correlates to depth. So we set that in relation to the bottom edge of the opener discs. There's 2 blades back here, which on a red planter are offset, so you have 1 disc for leads, and that's one of the reasons that they work well for no-till, is that by having that leading edge, more effectively. And I believe they also have a kind of a narrower seed trench than some other planters that helps because you're not moving as much dirt. So basically the openers, sort of pull the soil apart, and then there's what's called a firming point down here, which is the metal thing that drags through the bottom of the trench to give you a nice V bottom, and then the seed drops right here. So there'll be air coming out the back of the trench here, and you have to be kind of careful that you're not using an excessive amount of air, especially with soybeans, or you can actually bounce the seed out of the trench in certain conditions. Then these are the closing discs. So basically you have some dirt that gets displaced out of the seed trench that these pull back in over top of the seed. So just sort of see the profile, but as that pushes down, it's going to push the soil back. And then finally this press wheel, which is spring loaded off of this guy, to kind of pack the soil in firmly around that seed. But that's kind of the basics. I'm sure there's some other stuff on YouTube as far as promotional videos on how these work, but that's kind of how a Cyclo operates. Well, the corn planter is clean-ish and I am very much not. I'm gonna go blow myself off a little bit before I get any more dirt all over the inside of the cab here. But I think we're clean enough to put that away. If I remember right, I think what happened was I got sprinkled on the way home from planting the last field. And I think that's why things are kind of dirty. Planters and combines, we normally don't like to really wash because they have a lot of bearings, and if you get water into those before they go into storage especially, then you'll have bearings go out. This is maybe borderline to where it would be worth hitting it with a pressure washer, but then I'd have to let it sit outside to let the sun shine on it and try to get things dried off, and I don't really want to mess with it. So we just blew off what we could, and I don't anticipate trading this off and getting a new planter before next year. That seems like a pretty long stretch at this point with where crop prices are. Plus, not necessarily at the top of my list of things I want to upgrade. So there's not really any reason for it to be too overly shiny because it's just going to go to the field next spring. 2 planters in the back of the shed. So I think I decided I'm going to go ahead and get this all totally unhooked from the tractor. The only thing that this planter really needs before next season that I know of is work on the markers, and I'm kind of guessing I'm not going to get that ambitious until sometime like in April or March next year. So I think we're going to go ahead and unhook everything. With this planter, that means a whole bunch of cables and hoses and everything else. So it's probably going to be a 10-minute process or so to get this unmarried from the tractor, and then that way I can kind of hopefully put the grain drill in front of this planter and be able to get that out if I do decide or gain motivation enough to work on openers on it. Since that planter is wide, the only way it can get out of here is through the big doors, and you need a pretty open path to get it shifted over to get centered on the door. So if I put the grain drill somewhere over there, then it's going to be in the way and I'm going to have to move it, which means I need the other tractor, and that's going to be a pain. There is also the very real possibility that this will just sit here hooked up to the planter for a while longer, and then I'll punt and then hook it when we get ready to harvest. But there's a chance that I might get ambitious and work on that yet. It's hard to get ambitious when it's 90 degrees and 95% humidity, because it's not very much fun to work on the pad out in front of the shop. But anyway, get the corn planter unhooked and get stuff put back in here. All right, ready for the 4th of July weekend.